Hello everyone, welcome to the Cinema Analysis channel. I am Juzo. This channel will explore the hidden truths of films that are not usually revealed. Today I want to talk about Grave of the Fireflies. Why did the siblings have to die? I want to talk about the real reason. If you haven't seen the film, I suggest you watch the film first before watching this video, so let's get started. So, did you see the film? Probably many of you who have just seen it don't want to think about anything because of the enormous shock. Such a lovely younger sister Setsuko died of starvation. Her brother Seita died the same way as if he had followed her. Most of you seem to think that this is a work about the tragedy of war. This is not wrong, of course. It is also thought to be a tragedy born of poverty. I said I will tell you the real reason why the brother and sister had to die. It is a fact of history that 800,000 Japanese citizens were killed in the war on the Japanese mainland. Some died from bombs or gunfire, others from starvation. The brother and sister in this story died of starvation. But the cause of their death was not poverty. What are you talking about? They starved because they were poor. I know you thought so. Let me explain. Assuming they died of poverty, this film had a lot of strange factors. Seita, hurt by his aunt's words, bought a cooking stove and cooked their food himself. When you think about it, it is strange. The merchant who sold the stove said, "You guys are lucky. In times like these, no matter how much money you offer, you can't buy these items." And they left their aunt's house mainly because they couldn't eat enough white rice. White rice is not expensive now, but back then it was very expensive. There was a Japanese politician who said poor people should eat barley. Now barley is more expensive than rice. With no food to eat, the sister Setsuko was getting thinner and thinner. Seita took Setsuko to the doctor, and the doctor gave the predictable advice. "I suggest that she get some nourishment. That's all that can be done." Seita complained, "Where can you find nourishment?" But the doctor is right. If he had money to go to the doctor, he should have bought some food. Seita obtained watermelon, rice, and chicken. He gave her a piece of watermelon, but she could eat only one bite. He cooked some porridge with chicken in it. But Setsuko used up all her strength and died before she could eat it. Don't you find that strange? If he had fed her earlier, Setsuko wouldn't have died. Why didn't he? There was not much food in the country because it was wartime. A lot of people seem to think that. But the brother was able to get some watermelon, rice, and chicken. And money to buy it was taken from a bank account. Only when Setsuko became thin enough did he withdraw the money and buy the food. Watermelon, rice, and chicken. Don't you think watermelon is a luxury food? Of course, it may not be so luxurious for those who live in a peaceful country. But since you won't die without watermelon, it can be said to be luxurious even in times of peace. And white rice and chicken. Both were expensive and luxurious in those days. Why did he have to give her expensive food? In order not to die of hunger. It should be right to give her food earlier, even if it is cheap. Potatoes or pumpkins, for example. Some of those who lived through the war say they never want to eat pumpkin again. If they didn't have enough money, he should have bought cheaper food. But he bought expensive food. And there is the status line. Mom had 7,000 yen saved in the bank. 7,000 yen. If there's a match, we can manage plenty. There's no need to worry anymore. Think about the value of 7,000 yen at the time. The salary of a Japanese Diet member at the time was about 1,500 yen. 7,000 yen is more than 4 months' salary for a rich and powerful Diet member. How could they die of hunger with so much money? It was only because the brother Seita had difficulty adjusting to society. Their father is a captain in the Japanese Navy. That is why they had so much money. Growing up in a rich family, Seita's feelings may have been quite different from those of ordinary citizens. He was too proud of himself and couldn't fit into society. Because there were so few items in those days, it was difficult to get them even if you had money. You had to find out what was available, where to get it, and how much it cost. You also had to bargain hard. That kind of thing could be quite difficult for Seita. Seita's state of strain from society is symbolically portrayed, especially in the air raid scene later in the film. He runs in the opposite direction to the other people fleeing the bombing. He sneaks into an empty house, steals kimono, clothes, and food, and then eats. When he sees houses burning from the bombing, he shouts, do it, yeah. Almost as if his resentment was directed at the Japanese society he couldn't fit into. Not being able to realize others brought the worst situation of the sister's death. The brother had no intention of giving his sister enough food, even though she was starving. That's why the sister died of hunger first. Akiyuki Nosaka, the author of the original story, also starved his sister to death. He survived and wrote the story later. He blamed himself and tried to write exactly what happened, but he couldn't. Unlike in the original story, he ate the food he was supposed to give her. He couldn't get it into the story enough. He asked Isao Takahata, the director of the film, to portray it. It is written in a book, the textbook of Ghibli 4, Grave of the Fireflies, published by Studio Ghibli. Many experts submitted writing to the book. Director Isao Takahata's writing is also included. It says the following. The reason for making this film was not to convey an anti-war message. I was sure that young people would understand this story, because I believed that young people today could relate to the protagonist, to Seita's way of life. The 14-year-old Seita, who couldn't bear the endurance of social relationships, left them and let his sister die, which led to his death. The generation older than me, the generation that believes to hang in is the way to go, may have resisted in their minds when the original story was published. The younger generation is different. They hate things like man must endure and try to avoid trouble or conflict in human relationships as much as possible. So I suppose young people can realize Seita's mind flexibly. But Seita must die in the end. The money he relied on was worthless, and there were no convenience stores like there are today. Seita and Setsuko burned out in an instant, just like fireflies. That's the life they lived. I wanted to pioneer the new expression of animation based on such simple strengths. That is why I wanted to make this film. It is not a so-called anti-war film. I thought it would be impossible for me to make something as difficult as an anti-war film, but many people seem to read an anti-war message in the film. Akiyuki Nosaka states the same thing. Anyway, I dislike anti-war films. I also dislike the films like Oh What a Poor. It is a message that he wants everyone to read between the lines of the protagonist's flow. Nosaka didn't die. Seita dies in the story. What is the reason for this difference? In an interview with the director, Akiyuki Nosaka states as follows. In the end, the siblings could only shut themselves away in their own places to survive the cruelty. It was a tragedy, but also a happy circumstance. Seita tried to create a heaven for them in the world. I can see that very well. This is a Shinju story. Exactly, I felt it quite strongly when I first read it. It reminded me of something like Chikamatsu's double suicide stories. A lot of people might be surprised to hear this. Shinju, double suicide. A man and a woman who can hardly expect to be happy in this life die together. There have been many stories of this kind in Japan since ancient times. The director seems to have imagined Chikamatsu's works. The film I had in mind was Takeshi Kitano's Hanabi. Are there any similar works overseas? The closest I can think of is Thelma and Louise. Although the protagonists are two women, at the end they decide to die, and their car plunges into the valley. I also remember the film Leaving Las Vegas. In the film, a man dies and a woman survives. But the way they deviate from society has something in common with the Shinju stories. Romeo and Juliet, Butch Cassidy and the Sanders Kid, and Bonnie and Clyde could be such stories. In any of these stories, the main characters try to be themselves. However, they were frustrated there and deviate from society. Then they end up in death. The brother let his sister die and followed her, choosing death by starvation. He had a lot of money. The woman who served him rice balls is shown at the beginning of the film. He rejected the kindness of others and chose death. The brother and the sister are reunited after their death, and the world they are alone in has been built. But it is different from heaven, as they are in the future Japan. The ghosts who wander in this world without going to heaven. Such ghosts have something to regret. Patrick Swayze in the film Ghost was such a ghost. The brother must be sorry for letting the sister die. The real reason why this film touches the hearts of the audience is probably that we all have the fear of fitting in with society. When you try to be like yourself, there is friction or collision with society. We've grown up to overcome it, but can I, having grown up, be my true self? This conflict can be felt by everyone, to be honest. A hero falls into ruin trying to be himself. Although such a thing is not usually desired, sometimes it can be. I might talk about such works if I get the chance. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up.